Hello and welcome back to Reefcraft. Today we're going to be speaking about wild clam species, and I'm going to fit as many in as I possibly can. This video was actually requested by one of you, and if there's anything else you want to see, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Clams come in a lot of awesome colours and heaps of different types. And this first video really represents that. That's a Maxima clam right there, and then just under this aquapora you've got a Squamosa. And then I'll pan back across the other side and there's a heap of other Maximas in different colour patterns and forms all the way around that coral head. Now these clams are incredibly adaptable. Here's some more of the same species living actually out of the water. And they were actually out of the water for about 5 to 6 hours of a day. Okay, let's jump into the species. This is Tridacna gigas, the biggest of the giant clams, reaching sizes of up to 130 centimeters and over 500 kilos. This specimen I found was right around that 100 centimeter mark and was massive compared to the other clams in that area. Unfortunately, that's the only one I filmed alive, but I did find this massive shell off New Caledonia, and you can see my hand as comparison to that size. It was massive. Next up, we have Tridacna maxima. Probably the most famous and most recognizable of the clam species for anyone that has an aquarium. This was an awesome geometrically patterned one that I found off New Caledonia in an island called Leefu. Maximas come in a wide range of colors and patterns and can actually bore into rocks. Now they only seem to do this when they're little, and they secrete acid from their foot that enables them to bore into limestone or coral. If they aren't living in that environment, they actually won't do that, and they'll become more free living, like this one here seems to be growing out of the rock, whereas this one has definitely bored within the rock. Now because of this, and because they grow around tight areas with lots of coral and other clams, they can actually be disformed or disfigured, and this doesn't seem to affect them at all. How awesome is this green and gold one growing out of this Montipora here? This is a colour morph that I don't see very often. And then, believe it or not, this is also the same clam with a completely different pattern. Being part of the Tridacna family, Tridacna clams have the ability to clean large amounts of water by the way they fuel themselves. And this family of clams actually has 3 different ways of feeding themselves. The first is like corals. They have large populations of zooxanthellae, which is a photosynthetic algae that lives in their tissue. Secondly, they can also absorb nutrients directly from the seawater through specialized tissue, which can take dissolved nutrients like ammonia, nitrates, and phosphates out of the water. And probably the most obvious is their filter feeding ability. They have specialized gills that can exchange CO2 for oxygen and also strain food out of the water it pumps through its body. Now the blue clam in this video, it might be a Crocea, which is a perfect segue into the next species, Tridacna crocea, which is the smallest species of giant clam. These guys really only get to about 15 centimeters long and are also a boring clam. So like Tridacna maxima, they also secrete an acid in their foot which allows them to bore into rocks and corals. And on their colourful surface, they also have a line of simple eyes near the margin, and this is why they retract when you swim over the top of them. They can actually sense you moving. This next clam is actually not a Tridacna at all. This is the electric flame scallop or electric clam. Now they get their name because of the lightning show they put on their mantle. And this isn't actually bioluminescence, this is reflections of ambient light. It is also thought that the flashing is a defense from predators, but no one is actually 100% sure. I found this one while diving in a cave off New Caledonia. Look at that mantle flashing away, you can really tell why they get their name. This next clam wasn't described until 2007 and was actually believed to be part of the Maxima family, but this is Tridacna noae, also known as the teardrop clam. They are an elongated clam and can reach up to 20 centimeters long, and are considered a cryptic species, meaning they're hard to tell apart from Maxima by their shell, but it is quite easy by their mantle. I mean, it's in the name, they have teardrop patterns all along the mantle. And interestingly, the aquarium industry has actually been differentiating this for ages. They also differ from Maxima because Maxima have a neat row of eyes along the mantle, whereas in teardrop clams, the eyes are more spread out throughout the mantle. Around about this time, there was another clam that was described called Tridacna ningaloo, and that's for everyone in Western Australia. This has now been grouped together with the teardrop clam, and I'm hoping to be able to get up there and film some in the near future. Up next we have this Tridacna derasa, aka the giant smooth clam or the southern giant clam. And it's pretty obvious why it gets its name. It has no scutes or any sort of marking on its shell, except for extremely rare cases. They also have 6 to 7 ribs on their shell, which helps distinguish them from other clams. Whenever I find them, I always typically find them sitting above the substrate like this, and are very reactive to me moving past. They are the second largest of the Tridacna clams, and can reach sizes of up to 60 centimeters. This one I found in close proximity to a resort with high nutrients in the water, so you can see the shell is kind of covered in algae and silt. I don't really know what this one particularly is. Is it a Tridacna? Is it a hippopus? Not 100% sure. I'm leaning towards hippopus, just because that shape is a little bit different and the absolute size of that thing. But yeah, let me know if you think you know what it is. Tridacna squamosa is the final of the Tridacna clams that I have to show you guys today, and they are pretty easily distinguished from other clam species. They have these really large scutes on the outer part of the shell that kind of look like petals, and this is my best demonstration I can do underwater. Also, in the same clip, there's a really tiny Tridacna clam just inside the rock there. It'd be a Crocea or a Maxima. Anyway, and because of these scutes, they're actually called, or commonly called, the giant fluted clam. I always seem to find them with this particular colour pattern where it's striped in the middle, and then they have these symmetrical circles all the way up and down each side of the mantle where the eyes are. This clam, I'm not really sure. It kind of is too big to be a Maxima, and it's too scooted to be a derasa, but who knows? If you know, let me know. Squamosa clams can actually get pretty big. They can get up to about 40 centimeters, and I also tend to find them more in open areas like this than anywhere on reefs. Like other clams, if they're growing in close proximity to other things, they can actually get distorted in their shell, and you can actually see this one is bent. This doesn't seem to affect the clam in any way apart from its looks, but I do think it's super interesting to find in the wild. All of these Tridacna clams are important food sources for all the island nations that I went to, and many of these species are threatened. Everywhere I went and dove around the Pacific and Indonesia, I did find reasonably healthy populations, which is awesome to see. And you can probably put this down to farming methods for these clams, as well as local education for keeping healthy populations of these species. Finally, I'm just going to show you some clams that aren't actually clams. This is the giant thorny oyster. I find these guys so cool. They reach up to about 20 centimeters in length, and they have this really nice skirt, which is the mantle, and they always seem to close when you get a little bit too close. This next one I found out in Dunsborough. This is the razor clam. Now you got to be careful when you walk around the shallows. They can actually cut your feet pretty bad. Alright, that's all I've got for today. I hope everyone enjoyed seeing all these animals in their wild habitat. Remember to like and subscribe, and drop a comment. Let me know if there's any in particular species or animals that you want to see from the wild, and if I don't have any footage of it, I'll get out there and try and film it. Alright, catch you next time.